started. Okay, good morning everyone, and warm welcome this morning. My name's Chris Stock, I'm the Managing Director of Percipient, and I'm delighted to be joined today by two of our customers, Peter Gibson, the CFO from Hastings Hotel, and Victoria Walton, the Group Finance Director from McKeever Hotels. I'll do a short introduction and then I'll let the panel introduce themselves before we get started. So yeah, we've got questions which we can take at the end. So we've got the chat in Teams if people want to post any questions as we go through, as we touch on the various points. We can answer your questions at the end as well. I also want to thank Janice and the team at the Hotel Federation for allowing us the opportunity to talk to you this morning. So quickly, a brief introduction to Percipient. What do? We implement financial management software, so accounting systems. And we've been doing that now for just over 20 years. I know you probably look at me and think I'm not old enough, but we formed Percipient in 2003. Why did we start the business? For us, we were all working for a company that implemented what was known as ERP systems at the time. And really, we felt that business wasn't focused properly on customer service, on customer excellence. And really, that was the ethics behind us originally forming the business. We've been a Sage partner since 2013, so just over 10 years now. Initially, we started working with a product called Sage X3. And really, with that product over the years, then we carved out a real niche in hospitality and leisure. That was our core customer base, if you like. Sage Intacct, the product that we solely work with now, is a product that Sage acquired in 2017 and launched it into the UK market into 2019. And that was really our business plan, and our driver for Intacct was really, again, built around hospitality and leisure. We wanted a true cloud SaaS financial platform that we could take to our customers and implement. We've enjoyed some success along the way. We were Sage Intacct Partner of the Year in 2021, which was a big achievement for recognition for the work we do in the verticals that we work in and the success with the product. Last year, we signed our 50th customer with Intacct, which was the Lowry Hotel in Manchester. And we now have over 70 Intacct customers. And I think it's important to note that just over 50 of those are in hospitality and leisure. So I think that emphasizes the real sort of core base we've built up with the product. And recently, for the 5th year in a row, we've been part of the Sage Platinum Club, which recognizes Sage's top 30 partners around the world. So I think for us, for the team, quite an important award and recognition for the work that we do. So a little bit of an intro into what we're going to cover today with the panel. I think what we're starting to see in hospitality really is customers are no longer looking for just that standalone accounting platform. Yes, that's part of what we do. That's what we implement. But really now that what we're doing is part of the wider conversation and why around that hospitality tech stack. So customers are integrating their financial management system with other hotel systems. Obviously, the benefits that we'll talk about, the obvious one is improving efficiency and saving time, and obviously reducing the risk of manual error through automating those processes. Accountants love spreadsheets, but we always try and eradicate those where we can and look to do as much work in the system. And again, we'll talk about that today. But it's all about ensuring that we've got that one version of truth. And what we often find is in that tech stack that the finance system is really the heartbeat of the business, of the operation. And we'll talk about some of the dashboards and access to that real-time information. And really what's triggered the change? The cloud really, I touched there on Intacct and it being that true SaaS platform. Obviously, it's been gaining momentum for several years, but really the benefits of the cloud and what it can offer, and again, we'll touch on that, is really what's driving that change for our customers. What are some of the key benefits that a system like Sage Intacct brings? I think the big change over the years has been the dashboards. Years ago from a system, if you wanted to get information, you'd go into system, you'd run a report off it, you'd go to the printer, you'd collect that report. Now what we're starting to see is in the real-time dashboards that we've got, FDs will be able to log on, the information is there from. We've got customers who will have different dashboards. So the general manager will have a dashboard, they're logging in every morning. As soon as they log in, the information that they need for them is pushed to them, and that's adding real benefits. Continuous consolidations as well and close, that's a big part of it. Information, it's always in real time. Again, that's been a big benefit for our customers. And really being able to streamline business processes as well. Again, that's a key point that we'll touch on today. And obviously that best-in-class true cloud platform that I've talked about. One of the benefits there, we often talk about Sage Intacct as being that kind of last upgrade that you'll ever need in a way. They have 4 releases every year, so update to the system, you're no longer stuck on an on-premise software that you've got to upgrade yourself. say to provide these updates. They're done automatically. You don't have to do anything. That's all part of the subscription that you pay, which I think has been a massive benefit. It's more than just finance software. I think the feedback that we're getting is the automation and what the system's providing is allowing finance teams to focus on more value add tasks, so not doing some of the more menial tasks, to be able to use the data, to analyze the data that they're getting pushed to them from the dashboard, really to focus more on driving the business. We've seen a real change and growing confidence in cloud software as well. In years gone by, there's been that risk about security, but often now, and it's proven, and we can provide information around, it's safer, Sage managing that for you, that's hosted on AWS, on the AWS platform. So, it's a lot safer than it is than you hosting it yourself. That launchpad then, that base of that technology is allowing people to then embrace new technology as well. We've seen a real rise in using OCR scanning for your invoices. So whereas years gone by, you're having to have invoices, you're collecting them, you're opening a letter, you're entering on the system yourself. Now, quite simply, invoices can be sent into an email address and they're automatically scanned into the system and recognized for you, which is obviously a real plus. AI and GL outlier detection monitors around security as well, obviously cyber security, etc., is a real big focus area at the moment, and the system provides that. And ultimately as well, what the feedback we're getting is obviously, that investment in that technology is then making things more appealing. Any investors, anything like that, people looking at your business, obviously that's making it much more appealing. So I think that serves as an introduction from me. And then, so just before we get into the panel and some questions, I'll let the panel introduce themselves. So I'll hand over to Peter.
Thanks, Chris. Morning, everybody. Yes, as Chris has said, my name is Peter Gibson, and I'm the CFO for the Hastings Hotels Group. I've been with the organisation for just over 4 years. I'll tell you a little bit about the group, just in case you're unfamiliar with us. We're Northern Ireland's largest independent hotel group, owned by the Hastings family. Business was established about 70 or 80 years ago in the licensed pub trade, but it's been operating as a hotel group for about the last 60 years or so. And over that time, it's probably owned about, 14 or 15 different hotels in total. But right now we operate 6 luxury 4-star and 5-star hotels across Northern Ireland. The best known of which is probably the one that you can see there in the picture, actually the Europa Hotel in Belfast. But we also own the likes of the Culloden Hotel on the shores of Belfast Lough. That was Northern Ireland's first ever 5-star hotel. And we've got the Ballygally Castle Hotel as well on the Antrim coast, which dates back to, I think, the 17th century. I think is the oldest building in Northern Ireland, still being used as a residence, and also apparently haunted as well. So it's a nice little collection of very pleasant hotels.
Okay. Thank you, Peter. And Victoria?
Yeah, thanks, Chris. Good morning to everybody. Yes, I'm Victoria Walton, the Group Finance Director for McKeever Hotels. We're a family-owned business, and that's really a key focus for the group. We have 5 hotels, 3-star and 4-star are Dunadry Hotel, as well as the Adair Arms in Ballymena, Dunsilly Hotel in Antrim, Course Corner in Newtonabbey, and as well as Dillon's Hotel in Letterkenny. It's very much a family-run business. The chairman, Eugene McKeever, is well known, obviously, in the industry. He obviously started working in Course Corner as a chef. I think actually started washing dishes at 13, which I always find absolutely amazing that somebody has started, washing dishes and progressed right the way through to being a head chef, and then obviously moved on to do his own thing, and then moved back to buy Course Corner, and that's where it sort of all started. Recently, we've had a bit of a restructure. Eddie McKeever, who is Eugene's son, is the managing director. Bridging, the daughter, is the sales and marketing director, as well as our company secretary. And Catherine McKeever, who is Eugene's wife and the co-founder of McKeever Hotels, is the ESG director. And then there's myself and Martin Toner, the HR director, that obviously form the board. So yeah, it's a nice sort of quite centrally located. A lot of our hotels are in close proximity, but having the other hotels, in the Republic of Ireland as well. And the group are looking to obviously expand at the moment. So yeah, that's about it from me.
Okay, Oh, thank you very much. If we get into some questions then, and perhaps Peter, if we could start with you. Obviously, our industry is full of buzzwords. I perhaps used a couple myself already. So obviously financial transformation can mean many different things to different people. Can you tell us a little bit more about what it meant for you and the reasons why you looked to make the changes to your financial system and processes?
Yeah, I think for us, really, it meant the use of I guess, digital innovation to drive a strategic shift in the finance operating model. And that was through the use of, the cloud-based technologies that you've already mentioned, open API interfaces, artificial intelligence, advanced analytics, all of those sorts of different tools, I guess. And it was a number of different things that I guess really sort of started us on that journey. Probably one of the most significant things, I guess, was the compliance aspect of making tax digital, which probably actually for a lot of people is what has started them on this journey. So we were like, I guess, many medium-sized organizations, I guess, who had fairly old financial platform, but which wasn't making tax digital compliant. So that in itself, I guess, was a sort of impetus for us to start having a look at it. But probably more importantly, I guess, was the fact that when I arrived at the organization 4 years ago, it felt like it was a finance function that was very much the sort of old style traditional finance function, which is focused around transaction processing. People saw the finance function as the guys that wrote the checks, essentially, processed invoices, etc., etc. There was no credible sort of or detailed management information. The best that the general managers got was a P&L for their hotel as a whole. That was it. And I think they might actually have got it in the post as well, or if they were lucky, by fax. No sort of detailed information around the granularity of the business, say in terms of how the individual departments within their hotel were trading as well. So, that I guess that real sort of that lack of just granular detail around how the business was performing was another driver for it. But ultimately, I guess what we really wanted to do, as I say, was get the finance function away from being 80% transaction processing, 20% value added, and just flip that right on its head and just try and standardize, streamline, automate wherever we could to, A, make the processes more cost effective, but B, provide a much better service to our internal customers.
Well, thank you very much. And Victoria, the same question to you.
Yeah, probably something fairly similar probably to what Peter said. When I sort of joined 4.5 years ago, the finance department sat in each hotel. It was very much, they were siloed. They did their own thing. They had their own chart of accounts that all were completely different to each other. The finance function, a lot of it was a lot of transaction based. There was a lot of manual processing, a lot of paper flying between hotels. So we sort of created the head office and then obviously looked at the systems. I think COVID did play a part into the real need for the cloud-based option, simply because wherever you are, you want to be able to access your data without having to be physically sat in one of the individual hotels. With hospitality, it's so fast moving. To me, I suppose data is critical, because if you don't make a decision based in a week, you can't wait for these long closes. You can't wait for 3 weeks to be getting a set of management accounts out to managers, because to be honest, it's too late. You've missed the problem. So if you've got a problem with your labor costs, or you've got an issue with business not basically coming into the business, you're not able to actually react and actually engage with the other departments. So very much away from just like you're just invoice process. And I agree with Peter 100% in the, I always used to hear like about bean counters and people that just sit there and just like, would, just kind of process and do kind of all this, day-to-day basic things. But we're trying to be more helping the business make decisions, and being able to quickly be able to give you data. And, we've got so many systems now where, we've got flash systems, we've got monthly systems, we've got enough there that can allow us then to, make those decisions. So for me, it was the key of data and, the importance of analytics and how that's really become so important. And I think with everything that's going on around us, rising costs and, minimum wage, energy, this is really, really vital to have that extra level of detail. It's not really good enough anymore to just have the basics. I mean, certainly for our chart of accounts, we would have, when I first joined, would have been looking at total revenue, maybe split out with accommodation and food and beverage. We're now, trying to look into detail to see, where's that accommodation coming from? Which revenue stream is it? Is it weddings? Is it corporates? Is it leisure? What is it? And I think that's the key. It's like, we need to know what is it, because if we don't know what it is, we don't know where we're falling down. We don't know what business we're losing. We can't speak to the marketing team to get the marketing team. So we're becoming more of a really important function to aid the overall management of the business. So I think the old school, you're just doing the numbers, and it's not just the statutory accounts anymore. Yes, they're very important to get your audit signed off and everything, but actually the real key important is like that weekly reports, those live dashboards that obviously we do have within Intact that can actually help us see if there is a problem and identify it really quickly, so we've got half a chance of correcting those problems before it does cause us a bigger problem further down the line. So that would be really where the importance of the data and that analytics and just that shift in finance and what it actually does these days as opposed to maybe what it did historically.
Yeah. Okay. No, thank you very much. Okay, so yeah, move on to the next question then perhaps, and back to you, Peter. If we delve into a little bit more into the journey that you embarked on, can you give us a bit more information about the steps you went through and perhaps the processes you replaced?
Yeah. When we first started the process, I guess, it became apparent that there is no such thing out there, as far as I can tell, of a sort of all singing, all dancing, hospitality focused ERP system that covers all the bases. I think there's some people that are trying to do that. But what you end up with, I think, is a system that kind of, it's okay at what it does, all the various different components of it, but it's not what you might call best in class. And I think that's the advantage now of these cloud-based technologies with the open API technology, which is you can select what you feel to be as the best in class for each component and then essentially mesh them all together. So that's the route that we decided to go down fairly quickly into the process. And we decided that we would start with the core finance platform, because that felt like the part of the process that was most far behind where it needed to be. Plus, as well, we had all the sort of making tax digital requirements as well that I talked about earlier. So we get that core platform, the sort of foundation, I suppose you might think of it, in place first of all, and then start to look around at the other aspects of the business as well, focusing first of all on the sort of back office processes, I guess, and then start to move around to the front office processes. Yeah. So we were, I guess, very fortunate to cross paths quite early on in that process. Chris, I know that you'd met our chairman a few months before I joined, and he made that introduction. And obviously, Percipient were helpful in terms of just helping us go through that selection process. And in terms of the core finance platform, then I guess what we were looking for was something that was, first of all, flexible and simple to use. We weren't looking for a big beast of a finance system that's kind of really complex and heavy and difficult to use and takes hours of training. So looking for something simple and flexible, obviously cost effective because we're a small SME at the end of the day, but packed with functionality as well. We knew that we didn't want just something, just a sort of very, very basic finance system that maybe does a bit of invoice processing, does your general ledger, and that's about it. We wanted something more than that. And as I said earlier, really focusing around the sort of automation of processes, the ability to do that, and being able to get really good management information that enables people to drill into, find out what they want, slice and dice it in various different ways, build nice reports, build dashboards, all of that. So that's what we were, I guess that's what we were looking for. And, you know, I think we looked at 3 or 4 different systems and obviously, you know, landed on Sage Intacct in the end, because that seemed to meet all of the different requirements that I'd set out there. And then having done that, we then just progressed, as I say, to all the other aspects of what you might call the sort of back office part of the business. So we quite quickly turned to purchasing. We almost did that actually simultaneously with the Sage implementation. So we put Procure Wizard in place for our purchasing. We then turned our attention to payroll and HR and workforce management, time and attendance, all of that. Then looked at recruitment. And then more recently, then we've also looked at our PMS system. So we've just replaced that again with a cloud-based system that we've been able to connect up to Sage very easily. And I'd like to think that now we're just about on the final step of the process, which is looking at our EPOS system and credit card gateway and so on, and just getting that upgraded. And again, looking at a solution that fully integrates with the PMS system, with Sage, so on and so forth. So we finally, I guess, got to the step where we've got that fully integrated, self-built ERP system, I suppose, that we were looking for.
You really haven't stopped for 4 years.
No,
I'm
going to stop now then.
Yeah. You got there now. You've built what you need. Okay, Victoria, the same question. If you get a bit more information about your journey and the steps you've gone through.
Yeah, sure, no problem. So yeah, we had a fairly large overhaul. I mean, for myself, it probably started, looking at, kind of the fact that we needed to centralize the head office. So that was sort of the first step. But there was a lot of outdated process. So we sort of went through like a value stream mapping approach and sort of mapped out all processes to try and basically get as much out of the manual processing from day one as possible, to look and see, and look at sort of who, which heads we needed to do what. We were at that time, we'd already rolled out a TNA system, just simply because our TNA actually had to kind of, the license had all expired. So we were sort of forced into sort of doing that. So while we were working along sort of the day-to-day sort of plans for the finance team, we actually did the PMS and the Intacct thing at the same time, which was a challenge for sure. But it was also really good because it really meant that you were looking at the finance system, but you were looking at the full business. So we replaced all the till software. So we basically did the TNA, the tills, the PMS, the finance function, and we changed banks and along there as well, just to, give us a little bit more sort of a challenge. But I mean, it was good in one respect. It was very, very hard. It was hard work to do it all at the same time. I think the key if I take the finance thing completely separate, I think it's really important for you and your finance team to sit down and plan it out and make sure that you've spent enough time. I think some people tend to rush into just integrating and getting a system on board, whereas I think you need to be looking at the operation and looking at your strategic plan and the growth plans for your business, and then saying, right, I need to create a chart of accounts here. What does that look like? There's a lot of that stuff that you need to think about before you even sort of kind of move into obviously engaging with a new system provider. We looked at a few solutions as well, similar to Peter, that we felt that Intacct, suited us the most. And I have to say, there does give you some comfort in the fact that there's a lot of hospitality-based clients there, because it obviously is, obviously working for that. So that's really where we kind of did a lot all at once. Now we're still, obviously, there's still, for me, it's still ongoing. There's still more things that we're looking at, but there's definitely been elements where, even, being able to integrate immediately from your PMS direct into your finance software. I know, like, even from sort of even compliance perspective, that's, HMRC are looking at that as a real must. They don't want you manually having to touch anything. Like, so when we first looked at it, we used to have to manually take everything from the tills into the PMS, then manually take everything from the PMS into a spreadsheet, and manually take it from a spreadsheet into the accounting system. Whereas now we're like the tills to the PMS to the finance system. So it means that there isn't that, that physical manual, impact. So you're hopefully, getting accurate information because it's coming from one system to another and the checks are in place there. So no, I would just say definitely if people were, obviously looking at the process, definitely look at what your finance team is doing first of all, and make sure you've got everything but basically take the error out of as much as you can first of all before you even look at the system, so you get the full benefit of it. Because I kind of think you don't want to create a new system, you don't want to create a new chart of accounts if you're putting rubbish in. You want to make sure it's clean, the data's all how you want it to look. We had a very obviously a bigger challenge because we had all different codes in the PMS, all different codes in the finance system. So it was like 5 hotels were completely different. So we had to basically take everything and go, right, we now need to make this all, and that's why it probably made sense for us to do the kind of the PMS and the finance bit at the same time. But it was hard work, and I do think you need to have that project team there and have that resource available so that you do realise that it is going to take up a day a week of your time, to do it properly. And I think if you do invest in that, you'll reap the rewards further down the line, rather than just saying, right, okay, let's go live. And, I know we parallel run for like a couple of months with our old system just because it sort of crossed over with our year end and things like that. But it was a good thing because it gave us real peace of mind that the data was right, and it allowed us to, make that sort of transition a lot more seamless, really.
Okay, thank you.
I think the centralization point that Victoria mentions is really quite interesting, because we were like McKeever as well, in that, we had 7 hotels at the time, and each one, had its own finance person, it had its own HR person, and it seems to be how the hotel industry likes to run itself. I mean, I came from outside the hotel industry, but I did come from a multi-location environment. But everything, we centralized as much as we could. So I was a little bit surprised to come in and find that, 7 hotels each have their own kind of little mini support functions. But it was partly driven by the fact that the systems and the processes just were, they weren't very advanced, and that, it's a real benefit, particularly obviously for people that are running 4 or 5 plus hotels. Having this type of technology actually enables you to make those changes, which are, just at the end of the day, massively more efficient, to run all those processes centrally in one place rather than employing individuals at each hotel to do that.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, keen to perhaps go back to Peter and talk a little bit more around, we probably touched on it a little bit in terms of the benefits of the automation and integration that you've realised, and talked about the kind of the finance system touching at the centre of that. But can you give us a little bit more of an insight into what that looks like to you? I know you touched on the PMS side of things.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, there's been very clear quantifiable benefits in terms of the amount by which we've been able to reduce that finance resource that I talked about. Most obviously, I guess, in the area around invoice processing. So we process, I think, something like about 25,000 invoices a year, which is quite a lot for an organization of we only turn over 50 million a year. So I think the average value of those invoices is under £500 each. So it's high volume, low value transaction processing. And now we've got 80% of those invoices, I think, are being fully automatically processed. So straight through, no paperwork, nobody touches it. And of the other 20%, I think 3/4 of those are what you might call a sort of semi-automatic process. And, previously with that, we used to employ one person, and their sole role was only to process our food invoices from our food suppliers. And all of it was manually keyed, and she had so many invoices to process. These invoices, you can imagine, they're sort of a couple of hundred lines long sometimes, with a full detail of what you've bought or what we've bought. But she didn't have the time to key any of that data. So every single food invoice that she got, she just typed food and then the amount. You'd have to look at your food margin and try and understand, well, why is that different to what I was expecting? But if you drill into it, all you got was a line of things saying food. So it wasn't very informative. But now, obviously, with the invoice purchasing system flowing seamlessly into the accounts package, if you want to drill in, You can do that just with, a click of the button. You click from a number straight through into the invoice detail. You can click on it again, and you're down to another level of detail again. So, it's reduced the amount of, the cost of the resource in that area, but B, it's given a huge amount more management information, which obviously then itself drives better decision making. So I think the area of invoice processing is obviously one key area of automation that's been of benefit. The bank reconciliation process as well, can be quite challenging, I think, for hotel groups. And again, that was all being done manually previously. A great benefit of Sage and many other, cloud platforms is that you can connect through the banking cloud, the finance package to your banking system, pull in all those transactions automatically, and Sage, you can write various different matching rules and get it to auto match as many of those transactions as you can. So you're then just trying to deal with the more difficult unmatched transactions. So again, we saved quite a bit of resource there. And I guess the rest of it is mostly really just around that sort of integration and interface process. I suppose if you've got the systems integrating, you don't need to employ people to transfer data from one system to the other through that sort of endless keying of information from one system into another that Victoria spoke about there a minute ago.
Okay. No, thank you, Victoria. I know you probably touched on some of the answers to that in your last answer there, but anything to add? Anything from your side in terms of the automation and the integration piece?
Yeah, I think if companies are looking for the sustainability piece too, which is very, very critical and things that we are, very conscious of in this industry, it is really helping the paperless, solution. That definitely the processing of the invoices, not having these manual files of, like Peter says, like it's just the volume. The volume is huge. You've got all this information there. We find as well that because it's taking less time now, we're, we've still got a bit of work still to do on the sort of the purchasing element, but even at this stage, the fact that the team are actually starting to look at the invoicing, whereas they weren't looking at it before. They were just, like I say, they're just processing, so they have more of an idea of the price of chicken or beef, or so if something looks really, really not right, they're actually taking the time because they've got the time now to actually look at it. And to me, that's the the real value add piece. For sure. The bank live feed, like you say, the auto matching, as well as that, it really drives good housekeeping, because one of the things that we looked at is naming conventions, and it's really critical. Make sure that you're calling things the same names, like the reference are the same. So if you're creating these rules, it is going to be able to pick up, whereas if you've got, and I think this is back to the point of if there's individuals at different hotels, you're putting maybe your initials in front, then you're maybe putting a month and a date, and it's not a proper naming convention. Whereas if you have a more structured approach and you're looking at it from a consolidation perspective, you're actually putting those naming conventions in place, which then are helping you if you are creating the auto matching rules, because it's only going to be the month that changes, or so it's going to be a lot easier for the system to recognize things like that, which is good housekeeping too. Because also if you're looking for things, come and audit, or if you're looking for a reference for something, it's quite seamless. One of the things that we found quite useful, and I suppose it's more in line with the two of the big costs for us in hospitality, which is the cost of labour and the cost of energy, is the statistical journals, which is like, we don't look at a P&L for gas year on year, because you'd be down asking the GM what are they doing, are they like, have they all the lights on, all the power on, there's nobody in the rooms, because you can't compare the 2 years because the base cost is so much more. But if we start looking at the KWH data, and we start looking at, say, we look at the wages and we look at the hours, that's what we're focusing on. And that, having those statistical journals, then enables you again, and it shows, I think, the journey of finance, because it's not just those actual numbers that are going into the system. It's, yes, the numbers are important because they create your P&L, your balance sheet, your cash flow, but the other numbers that are really important as well, that actually sit alongside those. And I think that's what Intact does really nicely, is you can have that information there, because that really does tell a story. I mean, that's the first thing we would look at when it comes to the wage increases. Yes, we know approximately national minimum wage went up by X%, but there could be other restructure things in there. It's a very different industry where some places we've got people who work monthly, they're salaried, it's very straightforward. This is not a straightforward labor market in terms of it's so many variables within their contracts, part-time, full-time, whether they're working, supervisory, whatever they're actually doing in their jobs, different rates. So having a look at the hours and having that departmental analysis is really key too. So I think that's probably a really, really good area, to highlight for people that would maybe be looking at, their software and seeing what else you can add, because there are these sort of what we would say the non-financial, data that we're using to support the financial data, which in those two examples are to me really critical, especially in two major cost lines in our overhead section, for sure.
Yeah. Okay. The energy piece is an interesting point as well. We have one of our customers who takes a feed from their energy supplier, and they've got a dashboard and Intag that analyzes, on the second floor last night the bar used this much, and they monitor that over a period of time. So yeah, it's quite an interesting and well used dashboard, I think.
Yeah.
Okay, so perhaps then one of the $1 million questions. So having been on such a journey, can you give an indication how long the process took, and any recommendations, I guess, you would give to someone looking to embark on a similar journey?
That for me, or?
Yeah, go on. We'll go back to you. We'll keep the flow going left and right for me. I don't know what it is for anyone else, but.
I think the finance platform piece for us, so that the Sage Intacct piece was relatively quick, actually. I think from beginning to end it took 5 or 6 months maybe, so it certainly felt quick. I think probably we were coming from such a low base in terms of what we had previously. It was almost made it easier, actually, because it's not like we didn't have this sort of massive data transition to do. It was right in the middle of COVID as well, so I guess the hotels were closed and quiet, so it enabled us to get on with some of that stuff, and it was virtually all done remotely as well, which I guess is another one of the benefits, I guess, of not having the sort of on-premise software. So that piece was very quick, as I say, 6 months. We also did our purchasing piece virtually simultaneously with it as well. And as I said, we've gone through the sort of round with the whole cycle, I guess, within the organization. And as I say, hopefully, touch wood, we're just at the end of it, and that's after just about 4 years. So, if you're looking at doing everything, I guess certainly that's sort of, I guess, roughly the sort of timescales we looked at anyway. I think recommendations that I would have, I would say, definitely make sure that you build a cross-functional team within your organization to project manage or to be involved in the project. So, I said this to you before, Chris, we don't view Sage as being actually the finance system within the organization. It's just known as Sage. And that's because actually, if you look at the 15, 20 odd people across the organization that are using the system, only about 4 of us are what you might call finance. And the rest of the people using the system are all operational people. So it's our general managers, it's our HODs. They're the ones that are using the system. They're the ones that actually get the most benefit out of the system in terms of the dashboards and the drilling down to the nuts and bolts. So you've got to make sure that you involve people from all those different aspects of the business so that they can tell you what they want, essentially. And that will obviously then help you select the right products. And I suppose the other piece of advice I would just offer perhaps is just, I mean, it goes without saying, but obviously take up as many references as you can in relation to any software that you're going with, just to try and get the lowdown, I guess. What we have found with some of the systems that we've gone with, not Sage, I would say, but some of the other ones, which is they're good systems, they do what we want them to do, but after you've gone through the sales process and the implementation process, the customer service, I think, can be a little bit lacking. And there's some of the systems that we've gone with, that I would say I would probably mark them down on that front, as it were. So I think definitely speaking to other customers about their experience with some of these platforms would be time well spent.
Okay. Thank you very much. And Victoria, same question.
Yeah, probably similar sort of time frame, that sort of 6-month period. We did obviously do a bit of extra work really, and that was more on the basis of tidying up the finance team. But I would agree 100% with Peter on the, having a look at this from a long-term perspective and engaging everybody, all the other stakeholders in the business, because you want this to, when we were sitting even looking at nominal coding, we were out talking to the key owners of those cost and revenue streams and saying, like, what do you want to see, what is helpful for you, because we were building something effectively that we don't want it to be having to change in another 3 or 4 years, is something that we want to get longevity, out of. So it really is like important to, I think it's probably, get everything clear in your head. The stage part is easy in terms of the training's very easy. It's all online. You can do it at your own pace. We had like the PMS thing in the middle of ours, so we sort of had to take a pause for 2 weeks and push it out 2 weeks, which was all completely manageable because we built it into the project planner. But again, I suppose it's that, being able to go back and having that, kind of relationship with, the software provider and say, look, we need, or having the communication channels open. I know, like, I still have every sort of couple of weeks I speak to Fraser, and we're still talking about other things that are there, and if there is any issues, you don't feel as if you're just left, or if there is a problem, you get the answer. So I think it is important to think about that after service kind of, it's kind of like that, what is this for you, is this going to provide you, plus as well, obviously linking in with a provider that is actually wanting to develop themselves. You want a product that's going to be saying, look, we are constantly evolving here, because I've seen the changes that have happened in the last 4.5 years I've been here, and I envisage they'll be continue to change. Like, we're looking at the other options that for software pieces at the minute. It's even moved since 2 years ago. Everything is, so it's really important to, obviously engage with somebody that you feel you've got the confidence that they are going to be continually developing things. And I think you're the intact community and that sort of board there having, oh, look, everybody's finding that they would like this, well, we're actually looking at developing that, right? That's great. Kind of, it's already been thought of, because you're still very much listening to what the intact community want. So I think that's really important if you're going to get the most out of your system. I think you can manage the timing but it's using the right people and really having it, well organized, no sort of like, you can't have any slippages on, we'll do that next week, or we'll do that, it has to be, no, we need to stick to a timetable and make sure you have the resource in place, and that get everybody's buy-in really to it, that they are, you will get the benefit from this, and show them that you will, because that's obviously, I think, in this industry as well, people, it's change. People don't like change. And, if you, can sort of show them what it's going to give them, it makes it a lot easier for you being the person that's trying to drive the change forward. So that would probably be my key points.
And similar, Peter, do you have different people at different levels then logging into the system and looking at the dashboards? I know at Hastings they do.
Yeah,
so on that, I guess.
General managers, HODs, sales director, marketing director, they're all in and out of the system. Yeah. When they need to, primarily looking at their dashboards, I would say, and then the reports, obviously, and all of that can be controlled in terms of the levels of access and so on.
Yeah, are you fairly similar, Victoria? Some people logging in and looking at the information?
We have sort of set it up for that, so we have access for the general managers, but that's something that we're sort of kind of still working on at the moment. We've really focused on, I suppose, we had such an overhaul to do on the finance with the consolidation and the reporting, that was kind of like for the last year, that's kind of been our key focus. Plus as well, we sort of felt at the time, because we were doing the PMS and the tills, we were kind of giving them enough operational changes as it was at the moment, but that is definitely, we've got the licenses and everything there for the general managers to, to be able to log in, and, we want to be able to customize their dashboard. So, that would be our sort of kind of next steps for sure.
Okay. We've got the chat button there. If anyone's got any questions, perhaps I'll ask one more while everyone's thinking about anything they want to ask and typing them away. So Peter, back to you again. In terms of plans for the future, you've obviously had a busy 4 years. The business is currently looking at in terms of next steps for the finance function, or are you having a rest for a while?
Not yet. No, I mean, do you know what? I'm sort of quite excited about this, because people talk about technology and artificial intelligence taking over, the roles of finance and accounting and so on. And I would say, bring it on, essentially. when you think about it, there is absolutely no reason why the whole process of certainly preparing monthly management accounts from beginning to end couldn't really be done entirely by computers and AI. I think we're a relatively, certainly in hospitality, we're a relatively simple business to understand, to account for. We're not too complex. Most of that actually, as I say, could be done through fairly automated processes. So, and even as far as basic management commentary on accounts could feasibly be done by AI, I think. And obviously as well, the whole area of budgeting and forecasting, I think would be relevant to that. So I'm quite keen, I guess, now that we've got these core systems in place, I'm quite keen now just to really progress and finesse with that side of things, and really just keep driving the I guess the automation point, just to see how far we can take that, and then redeploy that resource that we've got currently in those areas into more interesting and more value added areas. So that's really, I think, what I would see as being the next step for us, really.
Okay. There's certainly some interesting things coming on. We've got 2 members of our team in Las Vegas at the moment for the INTAC conference. So I woke up to about 20 WhatsApp messages this morning of different screenshots and pictures of stuff that they're finding out, some of the points you touched on there. So yeah, okay. And Victoria, the same question?
Yeah, we're still looking at the sort of the purchasing element and looking at a separate module there. Definitely, I know when I looked at the OCR at the time, like a few years ago, it definitely the accuracy just wasn't, for me, it probably wasn't enough, because it still felt it was too manual and it would still need that person doing that kind of check. Whereas recently the solutions that are there are like phenomenal, like, the accuracy, you're sort of sitting 99 to 99 point something percent. So that's definitely something we'd be looking at, just simply for those reasons that, I would agree with Peter in terms of, the fundamentals of getting the data on the page is easy. It's not a difficult chart of accounts. It's not complex accounting, it is easy in that respect. But the things that cause us the challenges, the differing sort of like hours, labor, like the sort of the variations that are there, that people could be spending their time looking at those areas a lot, which would add a lot more value than just the processing of your standard journals or your standard monthly provisions. And it would enable people to be used in different areas. I mean, we're obviously got a stock system at the minute that we're trying to do some work with, and all of those areas where you're going, that's a lot of that stuff is money that is if it's better controlled, is cost saving for us, but it's maybe areas that we haven't really looked into before. Same as we're looking at sort of like pricing elements of things with our new till system, because we're looking at kind of like volume and price, and looking to see where and ensuring consistency across our group in terms of we are priced adequately for obviously the goods and the services we provide. So I think there's definitely that bit where if you can take a lot of that, the error of a lot of those processes, the stuff that is very labor intensive, certainly it has definitely enabled us in recent times to take on more, but not actually need additional staff, because it's just not taking as long to process everything.
Okay, that's it for me. I've been watching the chat. There's been no questions, so either we've explained ourselves really well, or I'm not sure. But does anyone have any questions? And please feel free to fire them in the chat. We've got a few minutes. Oh, you might be getting away scot-free now. So I'm waiting for one of our team to sit there in the background and ask you a question.
Think something.
Okay. Just from our perspective then, thank you very much for joining us today. Thank you to the panel, to Victoria, for Peter, for your time and your insight. I think that's really useful. It's really useful for people to hear the journey you've been on, and the insights and the recommendations as well. I think that's invaluable. I think Peter touched on it. It's okay, people coming along and showing you technology, and you're looking what it can do, but really when you speak to people that have done it and have been through it, I think that's invaluable, really. So I'll put my details on there in the screen. If anyone does have any questions after, please don't hesitate to give me a call or to drop me an email, and I can arrange either for one of our team to answer any questions that you may have, or likewise to get the answer from Peter and Victoria.